A lot of new horror games get announced every year, but only a few are worth your time. These upcoming titles already look genuinely scary, with good visuals and unsettling ideas. Here are 20 new horror games that already look terrifyingly good. Retrieval is one of the most anticipated horror games right now because of how it blends sci-fi survival with a clear story focus. It follows a commander who gets separated from her team and wakes up alone inside a ruined underground base on a distant planet. There's still no gameplay reveal, but everything shown so far points toward a slower, more tense experience. The game seems more interested in atmosphere and discovery than non-stop action, letting the setting and story carry the pressure. What already stands out is the visual quality. The graphics look very realistic, with strong lighting, detailed environments, and materials that make the base feel real and grounded. That mix of a strong story setup and impressive visuals is why Retrieval is getting so much attention, even before we've seen how it actually plays.
Always clawing at the surface like worms begging for food. A lack of understanding to push what we don't know when something should be left alone.
There's nothing we can do. There is no end.
Has been on people's radar for a long time because it blends first-person shooting with very realistic visuals and heavy, uncomfortable gore. From the first footage shown, it's clear the game wants to feel raw and disturbing. The setting feels grounded. You move through dark, decaying locations where something has clearly gone wrong. Enemies don't just exist to be shot. Their movements, reactions, and damage feel physical, which makes every encounter harder to ignore. Combat looks tense rather than fast. Weapons feel heavy, resources look limited, and fights seem designed to make you uncomfortable instead of powerful. The gore isn't there just for shock value. It reinforces how dangerous and brutal the world is. That mix of first-person combat, realistic presentation, and disturbing tone is why many horror fans are still waiting to see more. Resonance: A Plague Tale Legacy is the third entry in the series, but it doesn't feel like it's just repeating the same idea again. Instead of playing it safe, this chapter looks like it's trying to push the world and the story further, both in tone and scale. You don't play as Amicia anymore. Instead, the focus shifts to Sophia, a character introduced in the previous game. The story goes further back in time, showing a different side of the world and a different kind of struggle. It feels less like a direct continuation and more like a deeper look into the history behind everything that's happening. The game still keeps its focus on story and atmosphere, but the scope feels bigger. The threat feels more widespread, and the world looks more broken than before. It's not just about surviving anymore, but about dealing with the long-term impact of everything that's happened. M.I.N.S.K, set in a world that is almost completely dead. A toxic fog covers the city, buildings are falling apart, and very few people are still alive. Going outside is dangerous, but staying hidden is not always safe either. In this world, an engineer creates an android to explore the dangerous ruins and help those who can no longer survive on their own. Moving through the city feels lonely and tense. Broken buildings, dark streets, and thick fog make it hard to see what's waiting ahead. Gameplay focuses on careful exploration, climbing ruined structures, solving environmental puzzles, and avoiding threats when possible. Vertical movement is important, letting you climb, hide, and find alternate paths instead of facing enemies head-on. M.I.N.S.K feels unique because it mixes slow survival horror with emotional storytelling and a fragile world that feels truly abandoned. The Sinking City 2 puts you back in a city that's clearly falling apart. Flooded streets, damaged buildings, and strange symbols everywhere make it obvious something went very wrong. This sequel focuses more on survival than before. Resources like ammo and healing items are limited, so fighting is not always the best choice. Sometimes it's better to avoid enemies and keep moving. Enemies are more threatening, and encounters are harder to ignore. The game pushes you to think carefully about each move instead of rushing forward. Investigation is still part of the game, but it feels more dangerous. Finding clues often means entering risky areas, and the answers you uncover are unsettling rather than helpful. The environment tells most of the story through visuals, locations, and small details. The 18th attic drops players into a creepy loop where a dusty old attic holds more than just old boxes. An unnamed man finds himself stuck there with only a Polaroid-style camera and his cat companion, and the goal is to uncover what's really going on by capturing paranormal anomalies on film. In this game, ghosts and strange figures don't always show themselves clearly. You use your camera to take photos of anomalies, shifting shadows, and weird disturbances, and each successful photo unlocks a bit of memory tied to the character's past. That mechanic makes investigation feel active instead of passive. A unique aspect here is how your cat companion affects sanity. If fear starts to blur vision or make the environment feel off, petting the cat helps calm things down and ground you again. It's a small but meaningful twist that mixes emotional connection into the horror loop.
Evident. Then we see what is really there.
The Occultist follows a private investigator searching for his missing father on a remote island called Godstone. The place is cut off from the outside world, and the locals clearly don't want outsiders asking questions. What makes this game different is how investigation works. Instead of weapons, you rely on a pendulum to sense supernatural activity. It helps reveal hidden paths, objects, and threats, but it also pulls you deeper into danger. Using it feels risky, not empowering. There's no direct combat. Survival is about staying quiet, hiding, and choosing when to move. Enemies can't always be fought, so avoiding them becomes part of the tension. The Occultist stands out by mixing investigation, stealth, and supernatural tools in a grounded way. It feels like a horror game built around curiosity, where learning the truth is just as dangerous as what's chasing you.
We are going to do this. Just lower the gun.
Not until you move from the scanner.
Those things can change shape.
Don't you ever point that thing at me again.
Scan complete. Subject unidentifiable.
We need urgent assistance.
Directive 8020 is set on a space mission that goes wrong after a crash landing on a distant planet. What was supposed to be a hopeful step for humanity quickly turns into a dangerous situation inside a damaged ship, far from any help. The tension comes from not knowing who to trust. An alien life form can copy humans, making crew members suspicious of each other. Conversations feel uneasy, and every choice can change how events play out. One wrong decision can cost someone their life. The gameplay focuses on choices and story instead of combat. You explore the ship, interact with the crew, and react to high-pressure moments. A special rewind system lets you go back to key decisions and see how different choices lead to different outcomes. Clive Barker's Hellraiser Revivals drops you into one of horror's most infamous universes, based on the classic Hellraiser movies. In this game, a man named Aiden ends up in a nightmare after a mysterious puzzle box, the Genesis configuration, drags his girlfriend into a twisted, hell-like realm. What makes this game stand out is how it blends survival horror with first-person action. You'll gather resources, solve environmental puzzles, and use both firearms and melee weapons to deal with twisted enemies, including cult members and supernatural beings known as Cenobites. There's also an interesting twist with the Genesis configuration itself. Beyond being part of the story, this artifact gives Aiden abilities that can influence combat and interaction with enemies, adding a layer of strategy to how you approach situations.
Call for us, and you can no longer return. You can only journey deeper into hell and witness the infinite terror within. The reckoning will be.
OD focuses on an experiment where fear is the main subject. People are placed into situations meant to push their minds. Nothing is explained clearly, and that confusion is part of what makes the experience uncomfortable. The horror leans heavily on psychology. Faces feel too real, voices sound close to your ear, and silence is used on purpose. Instead of constant danger, the game creates tension by making you wait, listen, and question what you just saw or heard. Gameplay details are still unclear, but the focus seems to be on immersion rather than action. OD plays with the idea of losing control. Familiar spaces can change without warning, and events don't always feel reliable. Sometimes it's hard to tell if something actually happened or if it was only imagined. With Hideo Kojima behind the project, OD feels like a horror game that wants to get inside your head. AMIGO the Broken Loop follows Julian, a woman struggling after the death of her close friend. Strange visions start to appear, and they lead her to a company that claims it can help people face trauma by entering dream worlds. The game focuses on exploration and problem solving. Dream spaces change shape, familiar places feel slightly wrong, and clues are spread out in ways that reward patience. Progress comes from understanding the environment rather than rushing forward. One interesting gameplay element is the slingshot. It's not a weapon in the usual sense. Different projectiles can distract enemies, disable threats, or help you escape tense situations. How you use it depends on the moment. Movement stays calm and controlled. Riding a bike, walking through quiet spaces, and interacting with objects all help set the pace. John Carpenter's toxic Commando starts with a disaster caused by a failed experiment that turns the land into toxic sludge and brings the dead back to life. The situation gets out of control fast, and a special team is sent in to clean up the mess. Gunplay is straightforward and loud. You use a mix of weapons, explosives, and heavy firepower to push through infected areas. One thing that helps it stand out is vehicle gameplay. Driving trucks through muddy terrain, fighting while moving, or clearing paths together adds variety to each mission. This game leans more toward action than slow horror. The main focus is co-op play with a squad, either with friends or AI teammates. Missions throw large groups of enemies at you, so teamwork and positioning matter more than careful sneaking.
Ruby.
On my mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The newest co-op zombie shooter launching March 12, 2026. Today, you'll be getting the rundown on missions, progressions, and a whole lot more about the game. Strap in.
Crisol Theater of Idols takes place on a cursed island inspired by Spanish culture. You arrive as a soldier sent to find out what went wrong, but it doesn't take long to realize the island is deeply broken. What really makes this game different is how combat works. Weapons don't use normal ammo, they use your own blood. Every shot costs health, so fighting is never a simple choice. Shooting too much can put you in danger, which forces you to think before every encounter. Enemies are strange and unsettling, often shaped by distorted religious imagery and folklore. They don't feel random, they feel tied to the world and its history. Some fights push you to slow down, aim carefully, or avoid combat entirely. The blood-based system, unique setting, and focused survival tension make it feel very different from typical horror shooters.
Mi amor. No es momento de hacer castillos en el aire. Every secret you've hidden, every drop of blood you've spilled. A prize for the god you so love. But you know what they say, mi sol. Donde hay amor, hay dolor.
Antos puts you on Samsara, a strange, partly run-down hotel on the moon with a complicated past and a lot of unanswered questions. Amani arrives there after a message from her estranged father, hoping to learn more about him and what really happened on the base. The game doesn't rely on constant monster chases or jump scares. Instead, it blends mystery and tension with thoughtful exploration, puzzles, and narrative moments that make you think. The place feels like a place with layers of history, from labs hidden inside casino halls to creepy machine rooms and deserted corridors. Encounters in Antos often take the form of complex experiments or scenarios that don't have only one solution. You'll need to think about how to approach each situation, use tools and machinery, and sometimes make difficult choices that affect what happens next.
Your father thought he knew, and it inspired him to grant wishes.
Who's there? Nightmare. Yes!
That's why all of us are here. You want to understand, to know. Then you have to step beyond the walls surround you. Play your father's game. Push the very limits. Until even reality itself breaks.
I thought if I hid, if I kept silent, they would disappear. But the silence only feeds them. It gives them new faces, new shapes, shadows that know exactly where to find me. Every corner of this place feels familiar, yet twisted. My childhood rooms, my memories, all poisoned by the voices I tried to bury. And now they're back, waiting at the edge of my hearing. If this were only a dream, I could wake.
BrokenLore Unfollow puts you in the middle of a community that isn't what it appears to be online. People come together around shared stories and cryptic messages. As connections unravel, you start to notice patterns that feel off, and it becomes clear that this isn't just a social mystery, but something deeper and unsettling. This game digs into how social media and online life can affect someone's mind. It touches on topics like cyberbullying, body image issues, and emotional isolation, things many people today can relate to. Instead of big action sequences, the scares often come from unsettling moments and eerie spaces that reflect Anne's internal struggles. Many of the creatures and scenes are symbolic, representing specific kinds of trauma or emotional pain Anne has faced. That makes encounters feel less like random jump scares and more like pieces of her past showing up in a twisted way. Liminal Point follows Lyra, a former musician who returns to a quiet island after receiving a strange message about her missing bandmate. The island feels abandoned. Something clearly went wrong here, and the place hasn't moved on. Gameplay is built around classic survival horror ideas. You explore the island from an isometric view, moving through locations like old streets, buildings, and underground areas. Resources are limited, so inventory management matters. You can't carry everything, which forces you to think before picking up items or entering dangerous areas. Exploration and puzzle solving push the experience forward. Keys, notes, and environmental clues slowly explain what happened on the island and why Lyra was called back. The pacing stays slow and controlled, letting the atmosphere do the work.
I'll be waiting in the place where hope turned to ash. So come and find me.
Heart of the Forest follows a group of students who go on a hiking trip through Germany's Black Forest, only to find themselves stuck under a dark influence after encountering a vengeful spirit deep in the woods. As events unfold, each character is pushed to confront fear, trauma, and secrets they've been carrying with them. Gameplay focuses heavily on choice and consequence. You'll switch between different characters and make decisions that affect how people react, what paths open up, and who survives by the end. There's no fast action or heavy combat here. Instead, tension comes from the story, the setting, and how your choices shape moments between characters. Small choices can change not only the outcome of scenes, but the relationships between characters as they deal with fear and mistrust.
Something's here with us. Something evil.
Reanimal has you following two siblings who return to a place that used to be familiar but now feels wrong. Their island home has become quiet, broken, and eerily changed. They're searching for three friends who disappeared, and every corner holds uncertainty. One thing that stands out is how the game handles movement and teamwork. You control both siblings at once, or you can play with a friend in co-op, and the camera keeps both of you in view. Instead of splitting the screen, the game keeps the focus on staying together, which makes exploration feel more connected and deliberate. Enemies aren't just obstacles, they're part of the atmosphere. They often appear in ways that make you think twice about charging forward. Sometimes it's smarter to hide, move quietly, or study patterns before making a move. That makes the horror feel more about tension and careful choice than non-stop chasing.
I thought you were dead.
Cinder City takes place in a futuristic, post-apocalyptic version of Seoul where familiar streets and landmarks have fallen into ruin. Players are dropped into a world that blends science fiction tech with survival challenges as different groups and threats compete for control of the city. In this game, combat is a core part of the experience. You'll take on both human enemies and mutated foes across wide open areas. Weapon handling, cover tactics, and strategic positioning matter, especially in a setting that mixes tight street fights with long-range gunplay. Movement and traversal are also part of the design. Cinder City includes tools like jetpacks and vehicles that let you quickly move between rooftop battles or cruise through devastated neighborhoods. These elements add variety to how you engage with the city instead of just walking from point A to B. Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly, returns you to an old village tucked deep in the woods that feels frozen in time. Two sisters, Mio and Mayu, are drawn into this place while exploring, but as night falls, the village takes on a dark presence. What sets this remake apart is how it stays true to the original's slow-burn horror while updating visuals and atmosphere for modern systems. The core tension still comes from exploring abandoned halls, empty shrines, and overgrown paths where danger can feel just out of sight. The gameplay revolves around the camera obscura, a unique tool that lets you take pictures of spirits to weaken or defeat them. Instead of traditional weapons, the camera becomes your method of defense. Timing and positioning matter, and stronger spirits require better aim and strategy. This choice keeps encounters tense without relying on fast action or constant combat.
Do you think this is... What happened?
The ritual will begin soon.
Everyone's dead. Mia, no. Stay back. Run away.